Have you ever been, or would you ever go on, a cruise?
I have never been on a cruise.
I thought not, but I wasn't sure.
And I'd say, all right, here's my two answers here.
Okay.
Pre-2020, like, yeah, what could go bad on a cruise?
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. Okay, between 1919 and 2020, yeah, what could go bad on a cruise? But like after 2020, I was like, oh, like there's a real possibility this goes south quick, you know, with all these strangers that are like cruise going people.
Yeah.
Not the group of people that I want to associate myself with, you know?
Yeah. The Venn diagram of people that were angry about not being able to go to the hair salon and go on cruises is a very closely overlapped Venn diagram.
It's basically one thick circle.
One thick circle.
One thick circle. With 3 C's in the circle, not thick. Get your minds out of the gutter, cruise goers who are listening.
Yep, absolutely.
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperator take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Hey everybody, welcome to Butter No Parsnips. I'm Kyle Imperator.
And I'm Emily Moyers. Kyle, what if we did a word today instead of a cruise?
I think that is in itself some form of cruise, you know?
And this one in particular might be some form of cruise. Wow. Let's find out. Kyle, the word I have for you today is rover. R-O-V-E-R. It might sound familiar. You might think you know what it means, but the word is rover.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple things in mind immediately.
Okay, hit me.
I mean, a rover is a wanderer, no? I've particularly heard rover in the sense of, like, somebody who strays from the boundaries of a relationship is a rover.
I hadn't heard it in that context. That is fun. But that is also not what we're talking about today.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to need some sort of information here. Will the language of origin help me?
Probably not. It comes from the Germanic languages.
Germanic languages. And it's a noun.
It is a noun, yes. And I will say, etymologically, we're not sure if it's related to the other rover, like wanderer, but meaning-wise, you could associate them.
Is this like a noun version of a verb to rove?
In Dutch, but not in English.
In Dutch?
Not usually in English.
In Dutch?
Yeah.
What kind of roving are they doing in Dutch? What kind of raving they're doing in Dutch? You know what I'm saying? Some Euro trash. I'm gonna need a hint on this one, Emily.
That's fair, Kyle. The hint I have for you is rum. Yeah.
Oh, is a rover like? All right, like a rum runner? That's my immediate thought.
Think less specific.
Oh, a bootlegger.
No.
A glove armor.
What?
Just somebody an alcoholic?
One word. If you could get it in one word.
If I could define the word rover with one word.
Yep.
That word, I said alcoholic. That one doesn't count,
I mean,
though.
this person might be an alcoholic.
Oh, okay.
But they also might be a rover in the other sense. And they also might
my
be
stepdad. I don't
seas.
know. Oh, a pirate.
A pirate is a rover.
Oh, Emily gave me so many hints for that one. Emily, I've never heard of this term for pirates.
Right?
And now I'm wondering if the sense that I am thinking of it in is related.
Like to wander?
Yeah, or just being like a scalawag.
Sure.
You know?
Well, sure. So rover means pirate most originally. It can sometimes extend to mean a pirate ship. Historically, it was sometimes extended to mean a marauder, a robber, a raider, not necessarily on the sea. Obviously, as you said, rover can mean a wanderer, from the verb to rove, meaning to wander. And there are several other definitions related to that. That definition might be influenced by this pirate meaning that we're going to talk about today.
Sure.
Or it might be completely separate. We're not really sure. And you and I are not really going to dig into that today because I want to talk about pirates instead.
That's totally fair. That's absolutely totally fair.
That's it.
So I don't know if this is a good place to talk about it, to bring it up. But the reason why I know that, I mean, I know the word rover because I've heard of it before and because of the dog. But the connection that I'm making in my mind in the Gilbert and Sullivan operetta, The Pirates of Penzance, one of the songs says, I don't know, talks about a rover, but in a really metaphorical sense, and it's not talking about the pirates in that instance. Well, it's a show about pirates, so it could be a double entendre. I don't know.
So yeah, it was probably used deliberately because this meant a pirate for a very long time.
Fun. Love it. Tell me more, Emily.
So the word rover has been cited in Middle English as early as the 15th century. Although it may have come to English even sooner as a surname. It is very likely derived from the Middle Dutch rover. I'm going to say rover. I'm not going to do... I
loved it. We're talking about Cleveland, right? Grover Cleveland?
There's no G.
Who you're talking about? Oh, man.
It's just rover.
Oh, yeah, give it one more take then. No.
Okay.
I'm kidding.
It's fine. Hey, I'm American. I'm not Dutch. I'm just going to say rover. I'm sorry.
Guys, breaking news. Emily, I know we all had thought Emily was. I can't
do it. It's just going to sound bad every time. The Middle Dutch rover meaning robber or plunderer from the verb roven meaning to rob.
That makes so much sense.
The ultimate root is likely the Proto-Germanic raubana, or something nearly identical to that, some cognate. There's a lot of very similar roots there. Mm-hmm. Raubana was the Proto-Germanic word for to rob, to steal, or to plunder. Kyle, can you guess what other English word we get from there?
Broccoli raub.
You got it. Can you guess any others?
I feel like maybe.
Maybe a word I just said.
Does it actually come from that? A word you just said?
Yeah.
Rob.
Rob. You got it. The verb rob and the noun robber we got from French, from Latin, but the Romans got it from the Germanics, who the Romans invaded.
Wow. Really complicated. It's like, a reality TV show. You got to remember where the threads land.
Yeah. All of the words that we're going to talk about today really journeyed around Europe, so they're all very muddied.
I would say they're enlightened,
Yeah,
they
worldly.
They in their 20s, they went and spent some time in Europe. They backpacked.
Yeah. Getting back to rover, although it initially meant robber in a general sense, in Dutch, it was often used as part of the compound zeerover or sea rover, meaning a robber on the sea.
Sure, yeah.
Or simply, a pirate.
I kind of am upset that we don't call them sea robbers.
You do sometimes see sea rover in English. So, in older texts. But over time, by association, rover came to be used by itself to mean pirate in Dutch. And then when it came to English, it already had that association. So it meant that in English. I have a couple of 15th century quotes here. One from John Fortescue's political treatise, The Governance of England, which I think is sort of comparable to the Federalist Papers. It's just somebody saying, this is how government should be.
I wish we had a Fortescue.
At one point, Fortescue writes that among the responsibilities of the crown, quote, "It shall be necessary that the king have always some fleet upon the sea for the repressing of rovers."
Yeah.
Gotta take care of those.
Sound policy, I think.
Yeah. That should be the king's job. Get rid of them.
I feel like there are probably some other kinds of policies that they had at the time that weren't as good as this one.
Well, case in point, I have another quote from from the anonymous political poem, The Libel of English Policy, which was largely about commerce, but often from a very nationalist point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But at one point, the speaker describes the great expense of trading in British ports, saying that the British, quote, are the greatest rovers and the greatest thieves that have been in the sea many a year.
What a high honor.
Daylight robbery, he's basically saying.
Yeah. It's like, we pay our taxes to this.
Yeah. But it is, I mean, that's why a lot of pirates pirated, because to do trade legally was like expensive as heck.
Yeah, I mean, that's what LimeWire was, right?
Modern day piracy.
Thank you, Pirate Bay,
Kyle, I know I've mentioned a couple already, but can you think of any other words for pirates?
Oh.
As a bunch, they're all good.
Well, you said marauder was a good one. I want to say landlubber, but that's what a pirate would call not a pirate.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There's got to be other good ones. Swashbuckler.
That's a good one, too. Later in the episode, we're going to talk about buccaneer.
That's a buccaneer.
But
that's
Kyle,
what I charge for my corn.
Yep. That's
buccaneer.
The classic. I think the classic is what did the pirate pay to get his ears pierced? A buccaneer.
That's pretty good, but also insinuating that he's not going to get multiple piercings per ear. Like,
well, it's just $1 per ear. Maybe it's a really good deal. Maybe you get like 3 for $1.
That's a terrible pricing policy. It's like I can get as many as I want for $2
as long as it's on one ear. Kyle, I've got not one but 2 more words here, which I can all but guarantee you did not know meant pirate, and both came from Dutch, like Rover did.
We've talked about Dutch pirates on the podcast before, haven't we?
We're going to even more today.
Okay, it's just a stunning thing to me. When you think of the like stereotypical pirate, you're not thinking of them as
you're thinking
Dutch.
Of British. Yes, we'll get to that. There's reasons. I'm going to get to the pirate words in a sec, but to lead us in, Kyle, little riddle for you. What do pirates want more than anything else? And I'll give you a hint. You got it. Wow, you got it. You didn't even need the hint. I was going to say it's the same thing that something making a call at 2 a.m. wants. Booty. Yes. The word booty, as it refers to loot, also goes back to Middle English. We likely got it through French, but from the Middle Low German Büte, or a close cognate of that word, meaning exchange or loot. Among those Germanic cognates of booty or Büte was the Dutch bout, and bout was compounded with another Dutch word, vrij, meaning free, thus formed the Dutch noun vrijbout, meaning plunder, and other forms, including the personified vrijbouter, meaning plunderer or pirate. Are you seeing where this is going?
No.
Okay, good. Around the 1560s, English formed a calque of this word, which is to say we directly translated each part of the compound word, and thus we got the English word freebooter, which also meant pirate.
I don't know if I've ever heard of the term freebooter, I gotta be honest.
No, I've heard it on the internet to mean, like, if you're freebooting, you're re-uploading someone else's content on the internet.
Oh.
And I assumed it was a portmanteau of free and reboot.
And reboot, yes.
But it's not. I mean, maybe it is in modern use, but it comes from this word meaning pirate.
Oh, and so the boot in freebooter is
like booty. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a bad calc.
You think it should be freebootying?
Yeah. Or freelooting.
Sure. Freelooting would make more sense, but freebooter is what it became. It originally meant a privateer, as used in this 1570 letter, in which the writer reports that he was, quote, spoiled in coming towards England by the Duke of Alva and his freebooters.
A privateer is like a pirate that's paid by the government, right?
It is.
Something like that?
We're going to talk about that, too.
Okay.
Yep.
Fun.
We're going to talk about all of it today, Kyle.
We're going to have to watch the rest of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies after this, Emily, so I can use this jargon.
Sure. I've seen them all.
We're going to have to make more Pirates of the Caribbean movies, just the two of us after this, Emily. So there's something to watch for everybody.
Yeah. Now, In addition to this direct translation, this calque of freebooter, the Dutch vrijbuiter was separately subjected to the linguistic mangling of backpacking across Europe that we discussed earlier. Vrijbout was confused with another Dutch word, vlieboot, which was a type of vessel, which directly translates as flyboat. So the RL swap sometimes happened in English, but it fully took hold in French. And French, language of insane spelling, also sometimes uses the letter S to signify whether a vowel is long or short. In some words, it's silent. In others, it becomes pronounced, which is what happened in this case. So by the 17th century, the French word for pirate, often specifically a pirate in the American seas or the West Indies at the time, was flibustier. Yeah, that was borrowed into Spanish as filibustero. And the English, can you guess this one, Kyle?
Filibuster?
Yes!
What?
You got it.
What?
Filibuster.
You're telling me a filibuster was a pirate?
You got it. This word came later than rover and freebooter, but around the late 1700s, English began using the word filibuster synonymously with freebooter, although again, it often specifically referred to pirates in the American seas. In the early to mid 1800s, it widened out to mean anyone who acted piratical. And in the mid to late 1800s, it gained the political usage that it has today, likely in the sense that legislators were pirating or stealing time by monologuing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy, Emily.
Isn't that fantastic?
I would never have guessed that. I would have been like, oh, filibuster, it's like Philly as in filial, like family or friend, you know? And then bust, like, you know, a lot of untoward things I could think of.
Yeah, Kyle and I
don't know.
Somehow we got on the topic of the word filibuster, and I looked it up. And I was like, Kyle, don't look it up. I'm taking this
yes,
word.
I am. Like, why do I feel like we talked about this recently?
We did. Because you asked and I Googled it and I was like, we can never speak of this again. This is my knowledge now.
So if a filibuster in that sense was a pirate, the people in Congress who are doing the filibuster should be filibusters and they should be filibusting. But I feel like they're not. They're filibusterers now, right?
So it was originally referred to either the person or the act of doing it. And then from there, it got associated as a verb, is to do the thing that a filibuster
I'd like
does.
to find a way that we can just keep adding ERs to the end of that, you know? Like, how do we make the... I did my filibusterer the other day. That makes me a filibusterer. And then it makes you more of a pirate. Arr, filibuster.
Perfect. Now, Kyle, speaking of pirates, as we have been, can you think of any reason why we might have all of these pirate words from Dutch? Perhaps something that you have talked about in a previous episode.
Well, because they were colonists. They colonialized a lot. Colonized.
Well, they did.
That's the word.
They did. And not only colonized, but traded and were just a big deal.
They colonized specifically to set up trading posts across the world. Yeah.
You discussed this in episode 93, Vley. So during and after the 80 Years' War, in which the Netherlands gained independence from Spain, of whom they were a colony, within a surprisingly short span of time, the Dutch became a major naval power, very wealthy nation, very good at controlling the seas around them. I
actually am now remembering that a lot of like 18th century, 19th century like plays will have a Dutch tradesman as a stereotype character. And often like naval tradesmen, like they're like selling a ship too or something like that. So this makes a lot of sense.
They became a very significant naval power, rivaling even Spain, France, and Britain, which were more established powers at the time. And this is during the like 15th, 16th century. There were a lot of reasons why they were able to become so influential so quickly. As you've discussed, the Dutch were colonizers and slave traders, so certainly a lot of their economic success was built on the backs of indigenous peoples. And another part was simply their mastery of the sea. Historian Virginia Lunsford discusses this mastery in great detail in her book Piracy and Privateering in the Golden Age Netherlands. She talks about the Netherlands' history as a water culture, having their livelihoods tied up in fishing and sailing and whatnot. She talks about the sea beggars, which were a sort of like guerrilla warfare naval force during the Dutch revolt against the Spanish. And Lunsford also talks about the importance of the Dutch Republic's privateers. Kyle, you mentioned this earlier, but do you know what a privateer is as opposed to a pirate?
Yeah, it was like federally sanctioned pirates. It was like the government was like, hey, we need a pirate to do this job.
Basically, yeah. Privateers were given letters of marque, mark with a QUE, by their government, sometimes lobbied by a trading company because the trading companies were very powerful. And those letters basically said, you can steal from any ship that isn't ours as long as we get a cut of what you steal. Privateers did sometimes rebel, especially if they felt shortchanged in their cut. The share that they got of their plunder kind of varied. And if they didn't like their share, they might attack the wrong ships or keep more than they're supposed to. And if that happened, their letters of marque could be nullified. But like, how fast is news going to travel on the sea in 16 whatever? So they just had this get out of jail free card that nobody knew wasn't valid anymore.
Like, seriously, what are you going to do about that? That's hilarious. What a bad system.
Well, but here's the thing. When the Dutch Republic was on the rise, even a rebellious privateer was worth a lot to them because it intimidated and endangered competing traders. So that is like largely how they got to be as powerful as they were so quickly, is because they had like a very strong privateering force. Lunsford writes, quote, although legally criminals, Dutch pirates were often not identified as such. The Dutch often employed the same word, vrijboeterij, freebooting, to refer to the ostensibly different phenomena of privateering and piracy. Those accused of piracy frequently pleaded the profession of privateer, whether they carried the appropriate documents or not.
Of course. Of course.
They said, no,
I left it in my other pants.
I got the letter, for sure.
You gotta believe me.
That said, eventually the Golden Age started slipping away, and the privateers / pirates became more trouble than they were worth, at which point the Dutch government did start labeling them as pirates and criminals and started hanging.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's the best way to warn, you know? Right at the dock, you hang a corpse.
I mean, you could also like draw a picture. I don't know. I mean, I feel like there could be other steps.
I'm picturing like a 5-year-old's crayon drawing of a pirate with X's over his eyes.
Oh man, don't pirate. This could be me. Look at the quality.
Now, a lot of that story of like privateers turned pirates was also the case in France, in Britain later on, in Spain to a lesser extent. But for a minute there, the Dutch privateers were a very powerful and well-feared force in both European and American waters.
Wait, so we had Dutch pirates over here?
In the West Indies, you know? In the Caribbean.
That's what the West Indies. Yeah.
So there's one more thing I want to talk about real quick before we finish up. In the West Indies, the privateers were often called buccaneers. English borrowed this word from the French bucanier, and it's ultimately derived from Tupi, which is a native language in what is now Brazil, from the word muquem, which was a grill for roasting meat. Muquem was borrowed into French as boucan, literally meant one who grills meat was buccaneer, like a person who uses this grill. The word originally referred to French settlers in the Americas, but it came to refer to the European sailors in this area, who were technically privateers, but like so far from home, there was no oversight. They were kind of just pirates.
Interesting. That's a really strange progression there.
And etymologically linked to the word barbecue.
Oh, how?
That word muquem in Tupi, its equivalent in Arawakan, which is the indigenous language in Haiti, was barbacoa. which is where we get barbecue.
Wow.
Yep.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Emily, I'm just remembering, can you go back? Why does booty mean butt now?
There's actually a bunch of definitions of booty that are like of a sexual nature that came about in early 1900s African American culture.
Oh, sure.
And they possibly stem from just, it sounds like butt, but also might stem from the idea of women as loot.
Treasure.
Well, as an object.
Treasured pieces of our culture.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's why that means that.
Fun.
Buccaneering off the coasts of the Americas is, of course, a thoroughly romanticized and beloved piece of history.
At least by 50% of the on-screen talent here today. Possibly 100% if you include my favorite film I've watched in the last 30 years. What was it called? The Ghost of...
Blackbeard's Ghost? Is that what it was called? Ghost. Terrible movie.
Great 60s schlock from Disney.
Oh, absolute schlock. But it's certainly, by the media, thoroughly romanticized.
Yeah,
and there is no better source on this piece of history than the 1678 book, The Buccaneers of America. Or, as it was originally titled in Dutch, here I go. Die Amerikanische Zeerovers. That's my best shot.
I love it.
In essence, the American Sea Rovers. By Alexandre Excamelin. Pronunciation varies because it traveled through a lot of languages.
Sure,
The American way is Exquemelin. So that's what I'm going to say.
That's what you're going to say?
I mean, that's the most fun thing I could say.
I mean, absolutely, but it also makes him sound like an alien.
I think in French it's like Exquemelin, but because there's that QUE, we say Exquemelin.
In American, it's a squemelin.
It's a squemelin, and also the spelling varies a lot. Some of them have Exquemeling with a G at the end.
Well, because that's before they knew how writing and sound went together.
Basically. So this book was first written and published in Dutch, was hugely popular, and within 10 years was translated into German, Spanish, English, and French. And it is like the source book for 17th century, like pre to early golden age piracy.
Is this a nonfiction or fiction?
Nonfiction
book.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the book that people talk about in terms of like historical accounts of pirates more often is the 1724 General History of the Pirates.
Yes, that's the one I've heard of.
Yes. Yeah. And rightly so, because both Robert Louis Stevenson and J.M. Barrie cited that as a source in writing Treasure Island and Peter Pan. But General History came later and was more about like Golden Age piracy and was likely not a first-hand account, but accumulated and sensationalized the accounts of others. Exquemelin wrote The Buccaneers of America, recounting his experiences sailing with buccaneers in the Americas.
Wow. Incredible.
Most notably, Henry Morgan, a.k.a. Captain Morgan.
Wow.
The rum guy.
The rum guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That said, Exquemelin's account was probably also sensationalized. Again, he is the preeminent source on the subject, so it's tough to verify anything that he says against anyone else. But Captain Morgan himself did take issue with some of his material.
Oh, wow. In what sense?
So the book details some decidedly grisly violence perpetrated by these buccaneers, including a passage in which Morgan, while storming a castle in Panama, ordered his crew to use nuns and monks as human shields. Henry Morgan insisted that this was not true. He was like, I abhor piracy and criminal behavior. He sued Exquemelin for libel.
Oh my God.
And won.
Oh my God.
He was paid £200 in damages, and the passage was cut from later editions. There are like editions of this book where you can't find that passage.
The American justice system has been failing us for this long.
Violence aside, though, Exquemelin also described the buccaneers as daring and adventurous and honorable to one another, but also rebelling against the man, and he is very likely the reason for the swashbuckling hero image that we still have today for those rovers of the high seas.
Incredible. I'm stunned that we don't have a Morgan Exquemelin pirate duo film yet.
We should.
I think that's the next Pirates of the Caribbean entry.
That's what we're going to make?
That's what we're going to make.
All right, Kyle, I think I've roven enough of everyone's time. But before we close things out with a game, I think we'd all like to hear you use Rover in a sentence.
Rover. I mean, what an easy, probably the easiest word to use in a sentence that we've had so far.
Yeah.
I am a fan of swashbuckling tales and of the romanticization of the buccaneer attitude. But I also know that if I was plucked from my time and thrown back into the West Indies, I would not survive as a rover because I cannot swim.
That is a correct use of that word and a true fact about Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Good all around.
Emily, fan-freaking-tastic. Do you have a game?
I do, of course I do.
I would love one.
Kyle, your game today is called Ship in a Bottle. I'm going to give you the name of a pirate ship. Mm-hmm. I want you to tell me if that ship is real or fictional.
Oh, God, this is such a good one, but hard. Okay.
Well, just tell me if it's real or fictional, and if you want for a bonus, you could tell me whose ship it is.
Oh, who the captain was?
Yeah.
Or who the shipbuilder was?
Who the shipbuilder was, please, yeah. No, who the financier was. All right, ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kyle, first one's easy. Queen Anne's Revenge.
Oh, you're going to find really quickly that I know less about pirates than you think I do, Emily. Queen Anne's Revenge. Let's see if I'm naming all the famous pirates that I know. There's Cortez. There's Blackbeard. There's Bluebeard. There's Redbeard.
Greenbeard.
Forkbeard.
Just real or fake?
Real or fake. That's what I got to answer.
Yeah,
Queen Anne's Revenge. I'm going to go with real ship.
It is a real ship. So the Queen Anne's Revenge was captained by Edward Teach, a.k.a. Blackbeard.
Blackbeard, Edward Teach. Makes sense.
Blackbeard ship. As described in the general history of the pirates. All right, next one is Going Merry.
I mean, there's no way that's a real ship. That is absolutely a fake ship.
It is. Do you want to guess what property it's from?
Going Merry?
I'll give you a hint. Do you want to guess what manga/anime it's from?
Oh, is it One Piece?
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
This is captained by Monkey D. And I meant to look up if it's Luffy or Luffy. It is Luffy. It's Luffy, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. One of two,
Fun.
I think. That was the first one. There was a second one later. I can't follow One Piece.
It's long. It's
too
long.
All right, next one. Adventure Galley.
Adventure Galley? I mean, that's got to be fake, too. It's a terrible name.
It is a terrible name, but it's real.
Wow.
That was the ship of William Kidd, who was a Scottish privateer who
Captain
at one
Kidd.
point buried a ton of loot on Gardiner's Island, close to home for Kyle and I.
Supposedly.
No, we have documentation.
What?
It is the only documented instance of a pirate burying treasure.
I thought Captain Kidd's treasure was a myth. It's always portrayed as a myth.
There are myths about him burying treasure like all around North America, and those are myths. But the treasure on Gardiner's Island, there's like a record of its existence.
Emily, let's go dig it up.
I feel like people have probably tried.
Emily, we can't know that for sure unless we try ourselves.
All right, Kyle, I have one more.
Mm-hmm.
The Flying Dutchman.
Oh, I
know
the
Flying Dutchman. On theme for today.
On theme today.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that is a fake ship because I know that is captained by Bluebeard, who is a fictional pirate. Wait. Yeah. I think Bluebeard is mythological. Oh, maybe not.
So here's the thing. Flying Dutchman, it's sort of both, mostly fictional, because it is a real myth. There was an actual myth of a Flying Dutchman. Stories about like the ghost ship started to appear in British culture when the Dutch naval empire was declining and Britain's was on the rise. It has then been adapted into fiction 1,000,000 times over. In Pirates of the Caribbean, it's captained by Davy Jones or Bluebeard. There's loads of it. In SpongeBob, it's the name of the pirate, the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, which is great, and he doesn't have at all a Dutch accent.
No, but in reality, sailors believed that seeing it was an ill omen, when in fact what they were seeing was an optical illusion in which a distant ship appears to float above sea level.
Oh,
it is called a fata morgana. That illusion, from the Italian for Morgan Le Fay, the sorceress of Arthurian legend.
Weird.
Yeah.
But okay.
Because it's like a fey trick.
Sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't Bluebeard who captained it, was it?
No.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm combining two different operas.
The myths that I saw, I was supposedly captained by a Dutchman named Vanderdecken.
Vanderdecken.
And it was referenced in One Piece as well.
Of course. One Piece.
Kyle, that's what I got.
Emily, wow, love pirates. Can't have enough of them. We need to do, I think, a year's worth of just pirate episodes.
I tried in this episode.
Great to have, there's a lot of stereotyping about pirates just as kind of fictional characters. That's like, because like, there aren't those kinds of pirates anymore nowadays. Yeah. I mean, there are a little bit, but very different.
I found this article that was talking about like our image of pirates, and they closed out by talking about how like Somali pirates, like everything about them did fit the image. Like they were rebelling against the repressive culture and all this stuff, but because they didn't look the part, we just vilified them completely. Yeah. It was fascinating.
I mean, it's kind of like how Christmas is just frozen as a Victorian tradition because that's just when it was popular, even though we've been doing it for 200 years, that's just, this is what pirates are. Yeah. But great episode all around, Emily. We had so much fun today. And if you had fun at home, remember that you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, and you can find Butter No Parsnips on other social media as well, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you like today's episode, consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us.
And if you really like today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast.
Thanks so much to all of you. You help us make what we make.
And with that, I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Kyle Imperator, and this has been Butter No Parsnips.
Butter No Parsnips is produced by Seth Glicksman, Kyle Imperator, and myself, Emily Moyers. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.